let's get going because I'm sure you have a lot going on.
Oh,
So,
yeah, no, I was
yeah.
just going to start. I was just was curious where you're coming out of.
Oh, well, that's a funny story. I mean, it's not really funny. I was in Santa Fe for 8 years, and then last year, both my father and mother, who are not married anymore, started having pretty extreme health conditions,
Yeah.
health issues. And so I came home in October to outside of Chicago, and literally 2 weeks after I got here, my stepfather passed away, which was like not even part of anything that we were planning. And so I'm outside of Chicago, still living with my mother. She still has pretty crazy health issues and helping her kind of go through the house because she lived here for 60 years. I'm the only one who's not married and I have no children. So my brother and sister are contributing what they can, but they're like out and about busy with kids and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
I'm here living with my mom.
Okay. All right. So let's kind of take that baton and go further. Tell me about surviving the last 4 years through a pandemic. How did you get through that time period and how did it change you?
Gosh, well, I am by nature, I'm kind of an introvert. I really love being alone. I love silence. I love the spaciousness that kind of s- area kind of affords people. And so, when the first announcements were made about the pandemic, I wasn't distressed. I wasn't really sad about it. I thought, you know what? I've kind of been living my life like this anyway. In fact, so much so that when I was in junior high, I used to not go to recess, not engage with other kids. I would go to the library all the time. I was just in the library, and they had an intervention for me and kicked me out of the library. It made me go talk to people. So, all that to say, like being alone, being in that space was really good for me. It afforded me a lot of time and space to play with idea and with concept and with fabulousness and possibility as far as, it was one of the most fertile periods of my life. I finally got serious about putting together my Peter Rabbit book series rewrites, which I'd been thinking about for 10 years. I wrote a web series called Poncho in the Car with Noodles, and it just came out fully formed. Each episode is about 10 minutes long. And that's, sort of in production. I wrote a movie. I put together my animated series, Murder of Two. It was just such a great time for me to um, just play with creativity and with my brain and possibility. And then, of course, I made the podcast, and I created the podcast because I saw so many people on social media who are really seriously suffering and just so lonely and isolated and just struggling. And I just thought, what would I want to hear that would remind me that this world is a good place? Like we can have faith in other people and in our lives. And so that's kind of how the genesis of my podcast, Bite-Sized Blessings. And so, a lot of good stuff came out of it. I'm
Yeah.
not saying that it was a cakewalk for me at all,
Yeah.
because there were times when it was difficult for me, but mostly, it was kind of a precious time for me.
Yeah. I think there were a lot of silver linings. And there's so much that goes into who you are. You're an author, podcaster, screenwriter, clergy, producer. There's all these things, screenwriter. So talk to me a little bit about if I put you in front of a bunch of third graders at career day and one of the kids said, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How would you answer that child?
Oh my gosh, I would say, because this is like my favorite, because one of the analogies I use all the time on the podcast is I love getting in the sandbox. Come in the sandbox with me. I want everyone to be in the sandbox. And I think it's partly because I grew up overseas. I just am really inclusive. I want everybody, no matter who you are, come in the sandbox with me. I get to build things. I get to play with sand. I get to create with other people. I get to have fun. I get to make new friends. I get to help my friends build things and create things, and we all get to play together. And that's, I think we can take that analogy from being kids and playing in a sandbox to making it larger out into the world and, being inclusive and welcoming as adults. And still retain that kind of playful and joyful sensibility. So I will talk to any third grader any day. You let me know.
What did you want to be in the third grade? What was your dream to grow up and become?
Oh my goodness. I was in Pakistan, so um gosh, that is a great question. To be honest, a traveler, because when I was a kid, I grew up in Guyana in South America and then in Pakistan. And when I was a kid, my parents would take us Taj Mahal. I got to go to Kashmir and spend a week there on a houseboat, the Murray Mountains, Nepal. I mean, it was just New Delhi. I got to go to Bangladesh, Thailand, the Maldives. We spent 2 weeks in the Maldives. And as a child, that kind of just experience of seeing the world and just having it be this revelation all the time, because it's so different from what you grew up with. It just made me want to be a traveler and discoverer of new worlds just all the time.
So that's what I was going to ask too about your upbringing. Like, what were the seeds that were created that made you get to this point? Was it being in all of these different lands and traveling? How did all this materialize into who you are?
Well, I think, my father it was his job, which he was an economist. And so they were building giant hydroelectric dams and irrigation systems for developing countries. So we basically went where the jobs were. And then my dad disappeared during the day. And it was interesting and it was challenging because in Pakistan, where we were for 4 years, my mother started having the first, I mean, maybe the first that I saw of her depressive episodes, where she would lock herself in her bedroom, and I was quite young, and have told the story, to people, that I came home from school one day and I think I was 6 years old and my sister was 4, maybe I was 7 and she was 5, and my mom, in a fit of pique, had like flipped all the furniture over in the house. And I just remembered thinking, I've got to fix this before my dad gets home. So we walked around and fixed it all. But needless to say, my mother has struggled with mental health, just being a profound depressive for my whole life. And as a result, as a child, I didn't really get a childhood. I was the oldest. I had to help my brother and sister. I had to I mean, my whole goal was to provide some sort of normalcy in a situation which was not normal, which was not emotionally healthy, mentally healthy for us. My mother was suffering. My dad didn't know how to handle it. And, an ex partner of mine said to me, "Oh my gosh," when I started kind of coming out of my shell in 2015, 16, 17, 18, really started blooming, because before that I was just shut down. And this has been lots of therapy. It's been lots of body work, just a lot of deep, deep work. And he said to me, "Oh my goodness, you literally never got to have a childhood. And so now you get to play now. You get to have fun." And just my way of playing and having fun is writing these books and doing an animated series and just trying to include as many people in the sandbox as possible to play with me.
That's awesome. So, who's been a hero for you? You've obviously needed inspiration. Who has that hero been for you?
Oh gosh, I mean, I have multiple heroes. One of them is Maya Deren, the cultural anthropologist that went to Haiti in the 1930s, 40s, where she studied Haitian voodoo and really got in there. And her book, The Divine Horseman, is absolutely one of the more profound works, and talks about what she witnessed as she was studying and also engaging and befriending and being assimilated into these communities down there. And she describes what they talk about as possession, or being ridden by the god, because the god comes in and mounts someone and basically speaks through the human being, dispensing wisdom or advice or help. And I read her book and I thought to myself, oh my God, I can totally see similarities with inspiration, and how I sometimes feel like I've got this idea that's on my shoulders. I've described it to people like I'm being nagged to death by the muse, or like it's literally like a monkey. And if I don't sit down and get it out, it just becomes more heavy and more heavy. And so her book kind of let me know, or allowed me to know, that I can do brave things as well. I can go out in the world not knowing anyone and create beauty and create spaces for other people, but also that I should listen to that voice or that little monkey that's on my back for creating things and getting ideas out in the world, and listen to my inspiration. So, yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of inspirations, if you can meet one person alive on the planet right now and spend time with them, who would it be?
Gosh, that list would be so long. Oh my gosh. It would have been Shel Silverstein, but he's passed away because totally playful and wonky, but with like a slightly
Yeah.
naughty side, which
Uh-huh.
I appreciated so very much. But I'm totally into science. I'm like a science fanatic. I've read science my whole life. So probably be a scientist.
Okay.
Probably someone who studies octopi, to
Wow.
be honest,
Yeah, that'd be awesome. So,
or bioluminescence in the sea.
oh wow, yeah, that'd be great. So let me ask you this. You have this motivation. There's so many things that are going on in your life. You're so creative. What gets you out of bed every day? What gets you motivated? What gets you to do all of these things and to evolve as a person?
Well, coffee for sure.
There you
I
go.
mean, I was thinking to myself as I was brushing my teeth last night, oh my gosh, I can't wait for my cup of coffee in the morning. It's
Uh-huh.
so delicious.
Yeah.
Um, but the other thing is, I mean, I've really managed to create a really beautiful group of friends, and not even just friends, but people all over the world from interviewing for the podcast. Living in Santa Fe, I met tons of different people from all over. I mean, living all over the world, I met tons of people all over. I'm still friends with people I walk when I walked the Camino 10 years ago. And it's like these I forget what this is from, but like that thousand points of light,
Yeah.
because there is so much going on in the world that is negative and the media is like negative, negative. And I think to myself through the podcast, because I'm meeting strangers, I think, oh my gosh, there are so many more good people in this world doing good stuff and they want to do things for other people because there are takers and there are givers, but I'm meeting more givers. And I just think, yes, I've got work to do. Yes, I have to help other people. I'm excited about that because, I'm not going to solve all the problems in the world. You're not going to do it. But like millions of us, yes, we're going to do it to make this world a better place.
Very well said. I feel like the same way, especially being in this podcast world. There's so many people. I think there's so many of us that have similar desires and wants, and
Yeah.
there is a lot of good that's going on. So whenever I think about, whether it's a big election or it's something that's going to happen, I always feel like the collective will of the people will karmically somehow balance out.
Yes. Yes.
So
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. Two thumbs up.
there we go. That's it. So let me ask you this. If you had a dream tonight, you ran into, say, the 20-year-old version of you, and you could give that young version of you a piece of advice based on the wisdom you've gained in your life up to this point, what would you tell that young version?
Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, I also struggled with massive, massive, massive depression when I was younger. Um, and just to where I am now is a total sea change. I'm not on medication anymore. I'm different. And I don't know how to explain that to anyone. But what I would do is hug that 20-year-old and say, baby, everything's going to be okay.
Yeah,
Because I think we need to hear those words sometimes,
yeah,
especially when you're that age. I was in college, drinking was an art form.
yeah, right.
Yeah, not liking myself was an art form. And there's some peace with getting older. Yeah,
Yeah,
and not being afraid of it and kind of understanding that this world is like a gorgeously juicy place. I hate that word juicy. It's like moist.
right.
But
I'm
it's
okay.
like yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I never even knew that moist was a problem for a while. I'm like, what the hell is the mat with this bleachy cancel culture world? Like, we can't
Yeah,
just say that word. Like, what's up? It's so weird.
it
So
is.
So you've been around, you've traveled, and I'm curious, what is the one place that you went to that was almost magical and almost
Oh,
breathtakingly beautiful that you didn't expect?
oh my gosh, Kashmir.
Yeah,
Because it was, one of the few times where Westerners could go in where they weren't at war. And so we stayed on a houseboat for a week. And it is astonishing how I was like 5 or 6 years old, but the beauty was astonishing, and we would take these little boats, and it was gardens all around the lake, and it just flowers and roses and massive lily pads with all sorts of animals and insects, and it was such a profound experience to me and so like deeply ingrained in my body that I was in college in Champaign-Urbana and I took this movie course and it was a passage to India and they have this scene shot in Kashmir, and this bridge came up, and I mean, it took me, and I was like, I was on that bridge. Oh my God. I mean, it was like such a visceral memory
Yeah.
that Kashmir, I mean, beats everything every time. Yeah.
Wow. S-
Astonishing.
that's great. So of all of the things that you've done, accomplished, overcome, and evolved into, what are you the proudest of?
Not giving up. Oh, that's like such a pat answer, and it's so lame. But I mean, honestly, there were so many times that, I mean, I should have given up, or by all rights, I like, my heart just could not go on. It was just, I don't even know. Sometimes I look back and I'm like, how did I survive? Because this world is a tough place. It sucks like a lot some of the time and is
Yeah.
heartbreaking. And the fact that I'm still here and I didn't give up is, I'm so grateful for that.
So if you could get into a time machine and go back in time and see one event in human history, where are you going?
Oh my God. There are so many incredible things. I mean, you know what? I think I would like to go back to the period where they were building like Stonehenge.
Yeah.
If that's
Yeah.
like a weird thing, but with all the associated like religious, because I'm a seminarian, but all the associated kind of pagan carvings, the green man, everything that connected to nature back then, and the religious worship, and just see the gorgeousness of the astronomers, because I'd call them astronomers, as they oriented the megaliths according to the stars and the sun and the equinoxes. I mean, I would, yes,
Yeah.
yes, every time.
100%. That's great. So everyone out there has a perception of you, family, friends,
Yeah.
clients, colleagues, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Gosh, I think that I'm one of the more lucky people on the planet. I mean, I've had such privilege, and I didn't understand that until I went to seminary, that of growing up overseas. And because it's allowed me to be in the world in a way that's really generous and expansive as far as who other people are. And so is me, I'm lucky, I'm privileged, and I like to work hard. And I'm here to, I know, and it gives me great peace that I want to contribute and do good things for other people. And that makes me really happy, really excited.
So where can people pick up the books? How can people reach out, learn more about you, anything about your collective world? Where do they go?
Okay, so the podcast is bitesizedblessings.com, and it's BYTE. There you can find a link to my animated series, Murder of Two, but you can also find a link to my books, which are sold in George R. R. Martin's bookstore in Santa Fe, Beastly Books. So you can either click the link on my website or go to Beastly Books website, find my two books that are there right now, A Tale of Two Rabbits and The Nuts Guts, there. Otherwise, Instagram, Kirsten Rudberg. Actually, no, it's Edison Sucks one, because I detest Thomas Edison.
Okay.
And so it is my eternal thing that I'm going to rail against him for my entire life. And then my Facebook, Kirsten Rudberg. So yeah.
Kirsten, I love your energy, the way you do things. It's wonderful. Thank you. Keep on doing the good work and put the sunshine out there.
Thank you for having me. This has been seriously fun.
Yes, absolutely.